backfield. Can they do it again? Yes, they can!
And the catch is made by Taj Washington. Touchdown, USC.
Blocked by Embiid. Timmy, yes!
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Beef Upfront podcast here on Pick Swap Media. This is your host, Ryan Coyle, joined by Joe Kometz for our weekly college basketball show. The Sweet 16 preview. We'll touch on the Elite Eight a little bit as well, and then we got one more episode next week for Final Four National Championship. So went fast, flew by, but hell of a first weekend. You listen to the best college basketball podcast out there. Two guys whose champion is already out, so I went with Kansas. Joe, you went with Arizona. They're both out, but as you usually like to say, don't really care if we're right or wrong. Just root for some fun, some entertainment, and I think we got a lot of that last weekend. But welcome back, Joe, and how are we?
I'm fantastic, Beef, and I mean, I couldn't have said it better myself. You know, I had Arizona winning the whole thing. Princeton beat them in the first round, but guess what? Princeton's in the Sweet 16. They're one of the best stories in college basketball right now. They might be the best story in college basketball right now. And also, we also do know what we're talking about because a lot of these matchups, not to toot my own horn, I did have Michigan State over Marquette in the round of 32. But that being said, we have a lot of these matchups, you know, and we're going to get into them here in a second. But an awesome first weekend of the tournament, a lot of upsets, which, you know, that's the best part of March. We had FDU go to the round of 32. Their coach is already at Iona. A ton of off the court stuff in college basketball as well that we're just going to be focusing on breaking down the Sweet 16. But let me tell you something, Beef Up Front, Pick Swap Media, you know, they have you covered. We have you guys covered. No one else does it better than us. We've been trying to tell you.
I want to, it's easy to say now. I wanted to pick, now that Kansas is out, I wanted to pick Texas all the way, but they're a 2 seed and I couldn't get myself to pick a 2 seed because I've picked a 2 seed to win it 3 different times. I had Missouri back in like 2012 or something. They lost to Norfolk State. I had Georgetown when they lost to Florida Gulf Coast. And then I had Kentucky last year when they lost to St. Peter. So couldn't get myself to pick a 2 seed this year. At least Kansas won their first round game. It felt good to be able to see them play on Saturday. But without Bill Self, it was kind of hard. And then Arizona gets tripped up by a Princeton team who is looking like a defensive juggernaut out there right now. We'll get into them a little bit more, but there are 2 defensive performances against 2 of the top 10 teams in the country and offense-wise, and held them both under 65 points. Pretty insane there. So we'll get into all the Sweet 16 matchups, and then, like I said, touch on briefly Elite Eight and who we have going on to the Final Four as well. But we started on Thursday night with the East Region, Madison Square Garden. We got number 3 seeded Kansas State versus number 7 seeded Michigan State. 6:30 tip on TBS to start us off. Michigan State's actually, as the 7 seed, they're a 1-point favorite in this one. Over-under is 137.5. Joe, what are you going with in this game?
I'm going with Kansas State here, 78-69 over Sparty. Ultimately, I had Kansas State to the Final Four when I made my bracket. I had this matchup. I had Kansas State winning. Kansas State, the fact that they're the best seed remaining in this region is nuts. But this is a Michigan State team coming from a Big Ten that, I mean, you kind of see how they did in the tournament. The Big Ten wasn't that great. Izzo is an amazing coach, don't get me wrong. And it wouldn't shock me at all to see Sparty go to the Final Four just based off of this game and who he could potentially be playing in the Elite Eight. Because I don't think Florida Atlantic or Tennessee would be able to beat either one of these 2 teams. But, you know, who knows? That's the beauty of March. Kansas State, I was saying Keontae Johnson back. We did our Big 12 tournament, was going to have his March moment in the tournament. It turns out I was just a little bit too early. I think he is going to continue to be the guy that just is, you know, the answer for Kansas State. I'm blanking on, I think it's Noel. Yes, Noel. I forget his first name. They've been awesome. Kansas State's been a very fun team to watch. And I do hope they advance because they're just, like I said, they're a great time to watch. And I think it's going to be a fantastic game.
Yeah, I'm rooting for Kansas State hard to win this too because after the first weekend, I told myself I wasn't going to bet anymore, but I do have a future on Kansas State to win the region at plus 1,000. So hopefully that comes to fruition and we hit on that one. Give me a little bit more juice in the game after last weekend. Didn't lose much last weekend, but it was just I wanted to do the first weekend and then just kind of enjoy the games from there. But I like Kansas State to win this one too. Surprised to see them as underdogs. It's more so I think the name brand of Michigan State more so than the team itself, but they've been playing pretty well. They were really impressive in that game against Marquette. I had them winning here 74-70, so I'll go K-State +1 over 137.5. Consider me a fool that I had this as a Marquette versus K-State matchup, but I just wasn't a believer in this Michigan State team most of the year. They just kind of floated around that average mark, but they got a favorable 10 seed in a USC team that wasn't that great, and then probably the least talented overall 2 seed. Michigan or Marquette did win the Big East tournament and regular season, but talent-wise, they don't have some of these top-tier guys. And when you get a great coach like Tom Izzo and some experienced players that he has on his roster, it tends to favor him in that matchup. Kansas State was a 3-point dog to Kentucky too, which I was confused at. And here they are as an underdog again. I think this is something that you can use as like propaganda for them, as a little bit of an extra motivating factor. They've been good all year, 2 studs in Marquise Noel and Keontae Johnson. And a big thing about this, I think, is Marquise Noel is a Harlem kid. He's from New York. This is at the Garden. He's going to have everyone there, and he's not going to want to disappoint in front of his friends and family. I think he steps up on the big stage and has a really good game and carries Kansas State to another victory and closer to a Final Four. And the thing where Michigan State has had such great tournament success under Tom Izzo has been on those quick, like one-day preparation turnarounds from round of 64 to round of 32, with an extra, like basically like a whole week to prepare, whatever it is, like a full 4 days. I think Kansas State, Michigan State, they'll be evenly prepared. Michigan State with Izzo has been here before. Jerome Tagg and Kansas State haven't been this far. He's had a great year no matter what happens in this game, an awesome first year for him at Kansas State. But I do just think that they're the better team, and I think they have the best duo left in the rest of this tournament. So give me Keontae Johnson and Marquise Noel to take Kansas State to the Elite Eight here with the outright upset win. Go to the West region now. Second game on Thursday. Number 8, Arkansas, after upsetting number 1, Kansas on Saturday, versus number 4, Joe, your UConn Huskies, who looked pretty awesome in the second half of both games. First half, not so much, but they really are able to flip that switch. This is a 7:15 tip on Thursday night on CBS. UConn -3.5, over under 139.5 here.
Yeah, this is a game UConn cannot afford to start the first half off sluggish. Arkansas is clearing away out of the 3 teams that that they've had to play so far in the tournament. This is the best team, and as they should be. I mean, Arkansas, Coyle, you've been saying it all year. When healthy, they were a top team in the SEC. The fact that they got an 8 seed is crazy, but I mean, it shows how talented they are, by beating Kansas. So definitely all the respect to Arkansas, but I have UConn winning this game. I think it's going to be a little bit low scoring. I have UConn 69, Arkansas 65. So I'll have UConn covering the 3.5. I'll take the under 139.5. But this is just Sanogo has been playing like an absolute freak the first 2 games. I mean, he's been awesome. And this is an Arkansas team. They love to get it inside. They love to drive the rim. I think Sanogo and Klingon are going to, they match up pretty well for a team that likes to play like that. But it really all depends on if UConn's, hitting the 3 ball, which is, easy to say, but it's true. When they weren't hitting the 3 ball and they were struggling in the first half of both games, they come out in the second half and they make 5 threes in like a minute or something like that. Like UConn is such a streaky team, and if they start making their threes, they're one of the best teams in the country. And I'm very excited for this game. This is obviously, I know I'm biased, but this is, I'm looking forward to the most out of all the Sweet 16 games. I think this is going to be talent-wise maybe one of the best matchups, but I got to go with UConn here. I can talk all day like I always say, but I'll step back and let you go, Beef.
I'm mad at myself with this Arkansas team because I remember just a few weeks ago we talked about, like, all right, you're Kansas, you have such a great year, go through this dominant Big 12, and then, all right, here's your gift in the second round, Arkansas. Or we said the same thing with Houston. You win over 30 games, and then you get the gift of a top 5, probably talent-wise team in the country in Arkansas. And we talked about that for like a lot of the season. And then down the stretch, they didn't really play that good. So I was like, all right, maybe fade them here. And then what I've been saying all year, it comes back to bite me after picking Kansas. But, it is what it is. It is cool to kind of see them get this far. Musselman has just turned this team into a regular now in the second weekend, third straight Sweet 16, looking for his third straight Elite Eight. But I do think it ends here against UConn, 78-73. Just give me UConn minus 3.5 over 139.5. Should be an awesome matchup, like you kind of touched on. I think it is the most overall like talented on paper-wise matchup in the Sweet 16, despite it being an 8 and a 4. We have Gonzaga as a 3 and UCLA as a 2 down at the bottom of the show. But I still think this is a more talented game. And like I was saying, we talked about Arkansas not really being healthy much of the year, and then just getting together at the right time, and that's exactly what they've done. And they've done it without Nick Smith, their top overall prospect from the recruiting class last year. He's only had 6 points combined in the tournament game. So pretty crazy. I think this one is going to go back and forth, though. But the thing that has impressed me the most, you're talking about UConn being a streaky team. I think they have the ability to just flip that switch like no other team in college basketball. Them and Alabama, when they're at their peak, they've been both the most dominant teams this year. And I know they played earlier in the season. I would love to see them rematch in the finals, because when those teams turn it on and they hit that second gear, it's pretty scary to watch, and it can come like in an avalanche. Hawkins hitting 3, Sonogo finishing at the rim, Newton doing his thing. It's just a scary thing to watch when you're an opposing team. And if you're betting against UConn, you know that run's coming at least once a game, or at least the attempted run. It's just whether or not they're actually making their shots. And so far in the second half of these games, they've been doing it. So that ability to just flip the switch, I think they have that strong second half, and I think that pushes them to a win over Arkansas. But I think this is going to be a great game. Look for the final 8 minutes of this one to be key, and I think that's where UConn and Jordan Hawkins specifically go on that little stretch there. We go to the third matchup of Thursday night now in the East region. Number 9, Florida Atlantic, the Owls, versus number 4, Tennessee. 9 o'clock on TBS. Tennessee minus 5.5 over under 131. Joe, will Tennessee be going to the Elite Eight?
No, they will not. I have FAU. And this is just simply because I just don't believe in Rick Barnes in March. It's plain and simple. One thing I will say, shout out Tennessee. They may have, if Izzo, because Izzo is favored, you're looking at a Tennessee team that may not have to be the designated road team until the Final Four, which is unreal. The fact that this path has kind of been laid out for them so far. They bullied Duke, which was awesome because I hate Duke. Like I said, I was like, even though I think Tennessee's fraudulent, that was awesome to see Duke, get their just faces kicked in. But it's an FAU team that likes to take a lot of threes, and they got all the momentum in the world. Cinderellas, kind of like the bad boys. Everyone hates us because of they were excited and tried to make a 360 dunk at the end of the game, which I was laughing at. People were getting upset at that. Like if FDU was in that position, everyone would be like, "Oh, look at them! Yeah, they're going to the Sweet 16." But because FAU is beating up on the 16 seed, no one liked to see that. But definitely give me the Owls here. And if they don't win, I love the 5.5. I think that they can definitely cover this. Playing, when you're the underdog, they're now like the Cinderella story outside of Princeton in this region. They're for sure the Cinderella story. This is the first time ever they've won games in the tournament. Dusty May, awesome coach. And if they're making their threes, I know I already said it earlier with UConn, but FAU likes to take threes. They might not always make them, but if they're going in, Tennessee with the injuries, you start to wonder how far can they really go. You lose your starting point guard core, like we've always said all season long. Guard play is what matters most. And don't get me wrong, they've done a great job filling in, but it's a different animal. You're playing up in the Garden. If FAU's hanging around late, it's going to be almost everyone rooting for the Owls. I think they're going to go to the Elite Eight, and they're going to be one of the best stories in college basketball. There's a reason why they're, I believe, 33-3 right now.
Mm-hmm.
There's a reason why they've won 33 games. Give me the Owls.
Yeah, I'm pissed about the way the bracket has just opened up for Tennessee, because like you said, Joe, out of all these regions left, or out of all the potential games left, Tennessee, I think, has the easiest path by far to a Final Four right now. And I just don't think that they're deserving of that. But I do have them winning this game, and I do have them covering 5.5, 68-61. So Tennessee minus 5.5, under 131. Probably the least appealing game to me out of any of these this weekend, or at least in the Sweet 16, as I think FAU got outplayed by Memphis and had a few things and a few whistles down the stretch fall their way to help them get a win. And then FDU, and then they got to play FDU, which we knew their run would eventually end. And then Tennessee, as we talked about all year, just hate watching them. I pride myself on being able to stay up and have some beverages and contain myself and watch all the games. That Duke Tennessee game actually put me to sleep like midway through the second half. That's how boring it was. And now we have to watch them again. I just think this one's going to be another ugly game. But the big thing with Tennessee is all year we talk about their lack of offense. But when it gets to the tournament and things tighten up and stuff and the physical play is allowed a little bit more, that helps out Tennessee. And I think just getting over like that mental block, the mental hurdle of getting to the second weekend is what they needed. And now they're in prime position to get to the Final Four. The talent's there. The physicality is there. We saw that against Duke. The defense is there. It's just about putting it all together. And that's where I think they've struggled most in the tournament play. And especially last weekend when they were hitting shots, which watching them all, they still only put up, 65 points, and they shot like their best game of the season. This isn't a juggernaut on offense. They were just hitting ridiculous step backs and just not missing from three. It was just their day. They're feeling the confidence. I think they kind of ride that here in this one. I do think FAU is going to keep it close. It's going to be like a 2-3 point game throughout. But I think Tennessee down the stretch hits a couple of free throws and kind of pulls away. It's a Tennessee team I wouldn't want to face, though. You don't really see that physicality much. I think if Kansas State does match up against them in the next round, that would be a good matchup because Kansas State's used to those physical battles in the Big 12. But this is something I don't think FAU has seen all year, and I think Tennessee kind of bullies them a little bit and plays big boy basketball. So give me Tennessee with the win, with the cover, and the underhitting. All right, last game of Thursday night, the West region. Probably the best matchup of the Sweet 16. Number 3 Gonzaga versus number 2 UCLA. The only like true seeding sticking to accordance here. 9:45 on CBS. Bruins -1.5. Over under is 145.5. Zags or the Bruins going to the Elite Eight, Joe?
I got the Zags here, Beef. In my original bracket, I had this game, and I had Gonzaga playing UConn in the Elite Eight. So I'm going to stick with that here. This is one of those games, like when Drew Timme gets going inside, I don't like the guy for no reason. He doesn't know me at all, obviously. I just think he's been in college too long, even though he's only a senior. He's just one of those guys that is so good. It's like annoying because he looks like he just came off of like a court at LA Fitness for 2 hours. But when he gets going inside, he's almost impossible to stop. Like he's just been a dominant big for 4 years at Gonzaga. If he has 1 more year eligibility and stays, I hope he considers transferring to, maybe like a big time, like Power 5 program. But that being said, I think Drew Timme is going to be the reason why Gonzaga gets the Elite Eight here. I have them beating the Bruins here 83-81. I'll take the Zags plus the 1.5. I'll take the over 145.5. But I do, I don't really like picking against Tiger Campbell and Jaime Jaquez. And even though I know Johnny Juzang is a pro now, I still always think he's on the team, even though he's gone and he's obviously not there anymore. But this is going to be an awesome game. The fact that this is in Vegas too should be a really great crowd, split pretty evenly down the middle because, thankfully we're not having this game out in like the Garden. We're having this, pretty close to both teams. Should probably be a pro UCLA crowd, but it's going to be an awesome game. I'm looking forward to this game outside of UConn, like the most out of all the games in the Sweet 16. But I'm going with the Zags here to make it to the Elite Eight.
I'm going with Gonzaga too, Joe. This is another one of those games where I had in my original bracket Gonzaga UCLA meeting up. So I'm going to take Gonzaga to win here still 80-75. So I'll go Gonzaga plus 1.5 and the over hitting there. The best matchup, I think, of the Sweet 16. Excited to see these two West Coast powers just battle it out in Vegas. A lot of big names in this one. This is a lot of like names, even like I think casual college basketball fans will know with Drew Timme, Tiger, Jaquez, and both of these teams with pretty big name coaches as well, Mick Cronin and Mark Few. And I do think both of these teams could still win it all. Just a shame one of them is going to have to go home before the Final Four. Usually come tournament time, I fade Gonzaga, and that's worked out pretty well in the past. But I think I'm gonna take them here. This is a team that I think is playing with house money. They don't really have much pressure on them, and I think that they're using that to their advantage. Just go out there and play without the pressure, the burden of, oh, you better make a championship, you better make another Final Four. I think they're just going out there and playing, and I think that's really benefiting them. They're still the top. Gonzaga is still the top offense in the nation in terms of points per game, at a little over 87 per game. And while they haven't been their exact dominant self that we've seen over the past few years, still a really tough offense to stop. There's a website called barttorvik.com, and it's similar to like a Ken Palm with analytics and metrics, but you can like sort teams' data from certain dates. So since February 1st, the metrics say Gonzaga is the second best team in the country and UCLA is the third. So you're not getting much better of a matchup than that at this stage of the season. So this should really be a bloodbath. I just think UCLA's injuries and the missing presence of Jalen Clark, especially on the defensive end, is what is going to catch up to them. It's going to catch up to them eventually, and I think it gets exposed a little bit here against a really good Gonzaga team. So give me Gonzaga to move on, go to the Elite Eight, and where we both have them playing UConn. All right, now we head over to Friday, the South region. Number 5, San Diego State versus number 1, Alabama. 6:30 tip on TBS. Bama is a 6.5-point favorite. Over under is 135 here. Aztecs or Crimson Tide here, Joe?
I'm going Tide here, but I'm going pretty close. I'm going Alabama 70, San Diego State 68. This game is giving off vibes to me, Coyle, of when Duke with Zion and in the 2019 tournament had to play Virginia Tech in the Sweet 16. No one thought it was going to be a close game. Everyone thought Duke was going to, walk to a national title. And then they ran into a Virginia Tech team. They ended up winning by 2, I believe. This is going to be one of those games, just because of the sheer drastic, polar opposite styles of play that these two teams, have been going with all season long. Alabama is going to have to really grind this out. I know Alabama played Houston earlier in the year, but San Diego State's really going to make it grind it out. And if you're Alabama and you have a couple of minutes where you're not making shots, but in 4 minutes, you might only get 5 or 6 shots because San Diego State's holding on to the ball. It's definitely going to be, you're going to be out of your comfort zone. You're going to be frustrated. Not saying that Alabama isn't the better team because they are, but this is going to be a game I think it's going to be very close. It's going to be very exciting. Aztecs are going to definitely stay in it till the very end. I have them covering for the sake of our picks, but I wouldn't be surprised if, Bama late in the game pulls away. But this might be one of those games, you look up at halftime, Friday night, you're getting ready to you're pregame and getting ready to go, to your buddy's house. You're like, oh, you get the Bleacher Report update, the exploding head. Alabama down 3 at the half or something like that. This is going to be a grinded out game. Very excited for this one. I'm excited for all the games. Who am I kidding? But give me Alabama here in a close one.
I'm going to take Alabama as well to go to the Elite Eight, 75-65. So I'll have them cover 6.5. Over 135, but I'm there with you, Joe. I think it's going to be a tough battle, and one of those things where Bama just might be a little bit too much at the end. Game of really contrasting styles if you've watched both these teams play, at least in the tournament so far. As Alabama, they can defend, but they just want to get up and down, and they want to outscore you. And San Diego State has really impressed me with their ability to just muck it up, both in games against Charleston and Furman. I know not exactly elite competition. They've kind of had a pretty favorable path here, but those are two teams that all year shot the 3-ball really well and were able to score. And San Diego State, with their veteran guys and just their grown men more times than not, they have 4th and 5th year guys out there. They were able to just control the pace and control the style of game. But now this is a completely different animal with Alabama. It's amazing how fast they're able to get the ball out of the rim and go. I remember it was the Corpus Christi game, the first game. I know it's a 16 seed, but Corpus Christi would score and Alabama would have the ball at the 3-point line within 3 seconds and almost be getting up a shot already. This team just gets it and goes, and it's hard to stop when they're rolling. So I'm really intrigued to see if San Diego State will be able to kind of slow down the pace and hold Alabama to below 70 points. I think that's their best shot. In 4 out of 5 losses this season for Alabama, they were held below 70. And in 3 of those losses, their opponent scored over 70 as well. So 70 is a bit of a magic number there for Alabama. In 4 out of 6 of San Diego State's losses, their opponent was able to score over 70 points. So 70 is the magic number, I think, for this matchup. I think the first team to 70 wins, and I think Alabama is just so dangerous in transition and getting the ball up quickly. Also, if San Diego State gets out to a bit of a lead, Alabama is able to, like UConn, Joe, just flip that switch and turn it on right away and get that lead right back. So I just think they're going to be too much for Alabama to overcome. And I think if Alabama is able to get up like 10 early, I don't think San Diego State has the firepower to compete with that. So give me Alabama 75, San Diego State 65, Bama -6.5, and over 135. All right, we go to the Midwest region now. Number 5, Miami versus number 1, Houston, 7:15 on CBS. Houston is a pretty big favorite here. 7-point favorite. Over under is 138. So Miami team that was in the Elite Eight last year, Joe, do you think that they could pull off the upset and get back?
Yes, I do. I had Miami over Houston in my original bracket, so I'm kind of just riding that. I have Miami winning this game 80-69, which is basically the exact argument I just made for San Diego State came in close with Bama. Just flip that around completely. I think Miami is going to be able to run all over Houston. I don't know how 100% Sasser is with that groin injury. That's definitely going to be something to look out for. But I just think Wong is going to have another monster game. Miami's a really fun team to watch. Kind of like what we've been saying, Coyle, all year though as well. Guard play gets you far in the tournament. This is a team coming off an Elite Eight run last year. They were a 10 seed. This year, they're a 5. I think they're the perfect matchup for Houston. Houston, out of all the teams they could have saw on the 5 line, they definitely did not want to see Miami just because of Miami's style of play. I think Houston is going to definitely be flustered just with how much Miami runs, and they want to try to score 100 points a game. That's why you have, an over-under 138 for Houston, a game where Houston's playing. Normally, I would say take the under. I have the over in this one, and I would definitely take Miami plus the 7. That's a lot of points to me, but there's a reason why I'm not a handicapper in Vegas right now, and I'm currently living in a college house and not in the Playboy Mansion, but what do I know? Give me the Hurricanes, though.
I'm taking the upset here too, Joe. Not just the spread, Miami covering that plus 7. I'm taking them outright to move on to the Elite Eight, 79-73. So Miami plus 7, over 138. Really surprised to see this number at 7. I think the disrespect for Miami continues. It's a team that went to the Elite Eight last year, returned their best player in Isaiah Wong, and then they were one of the big trendy upset picks in the first round. Only a 2-point favorite, I believe they closed out against Drake. Bit of a sweat in that one, but then they really took care of a good Indiana team. And here they are back in the Sweet 16 again. It's become, like I was saying with Arkansas, a regular spot for this program. A game that surprises many people, I think you could say, is bound to happen this weekend. And I think this has a very good chance because it's not like they're short of talent, this Miami team. Just Houston is maybe a little bit more physical and a better overall team, I think you could say. But Miami has the talent to go. And when their guys are making shots, their guards, they're as good as anyone in the country. Houston lost to Alabama earlier this year, and they lost to Memphis. Both teams like to get out in transition and play a track meet type style. That's what Miami's going to try and do in this one. I think they're comfortable in that environment, and if they get this going up and down, they can win. They do need to keep Houston off the glass, though. Houston does have the advantage there. Houston ranks 27th in the country at 39.1 points or rebounds per game. One of the better offensive rebounding teams in the country as well. I think that is a key for them to stop. If Miami's hitting shots, though, and they're able to control the pace of play, they should be able to move on to their second consecutive Elite Eight, I think. So give me Miami with the outright upset pick to go there with you, Joe. All right, we go to the South region now. Cinderella, number 15, Princeton versus number 6, Creighton. 9 o'clock on TBS. Creighton is a 7.5-point favorite here. Over under is 140. So I think that's pretty insane that Creighton's a 7.5-point favorite as a 6 seed versus a 15, and Houston's a 7-point favorite as a 1 against a 5. Just a pretty crazy there to me, those two lines, the way that they've been established. But do you think the Cinderella run can continue here for Princeton, Joe?
I don't, and I hope I'm wrong. But I just think the fact that we've had 3 15 seeds in a row make it to the Sweet 16. Like if you would have told us that 5 years ago that 15 seeds would make it to the Sweet 16 or further in 3 straight years, we would have laughed and said that you were crazy. There were rumblings earlier in the week about McDermott potentially leaving Creighton and going to Notre Dame, being the head coach. Since then, Shrewsbury from Penn State got hired, so those rumors died down, obviously. But I'm interested to see how that kind of has an effect. Whenever you hear rumors of a coach potentially leaving, you always wonder how it's going to be perceived in the locker room. This is one of those games. I have Creighton winning 68-66. I think it's going to be a close game because Princeton defensively has been something else in this tournament because they completely dominated Mizzou. They broke the record for a margin of victory by a 15 seed over any team. It was a very impressive win that is kind of going under the radar. No one's really talking about the Tigers here and the fact that they're a 15 seed. But I just think the talent is going to show itself here, especially the South region's in Louisville, right?
Yeah, it's at the Yum Center.
I was just saying, Louisville, off the top of my head, definitely closer to Nebraska. Like, I think you're going to have a pretty good Creighton showing here. Obviously, like I was saying earlier, though, if Princeton's hanging around late, everyone's going to be rooting for the 15 seed, especially the Alabama fans. Imagine you're Alabama and you have the potential to play Princeton in the Elite Eight. Thank God they're not looking at SAT scores there for that game, but I think Creighton will be able to pull this one out. Just the talent is going to be a bit too much, but an unreal season for Princeton.
I'm going to take Creighton to end Princeton's run here, 270-265. So I will take Princeton to cover 7.5, under 140. I think Princeton, though, Joe, has been like one of the least or the least hyped up 15 seed out of these recent ones. I feel like all week we would have been hearing like about them. Maybe it's because of what happened with FDU, but I just feel like Princeton hasn't really been talked about that much as a 15 seed going to the Sweet 16. And they beat up on a Missouri team that was pretty good, and they upset an Arizona team that many people like you had winning the national title. It might be because like Princeton's more of a known like national brand, and they're not like an Oral Roberts or a Florida Gulf Coast that some people might have never heard of before, but still awesome to see them get this far. Their defense, as we touched on at the beginning of the show, has been insane. They held Arizona to under 50 or to 55 points, and they held Missouri to 63. Both of those teams were two of the highest scoring offenses in the country, and both ranked top 10 in adjusted offensive efficiency this season. So their defense has been at a different level. They now face a Creighton team who, very much like Arkansas, as we were talking about, had dealt with injuries throughout the season, but now they're healthy. And I think they're going to put an end to Princeton's run here. Creighton was a Final Four team for me at the beginning of the year, and I like their chances to have a chance to play for a berth to Houston on Sunday night after knocking off Princeton here. And they're another team where I had a free bet a few weeks ago, and I put it on them to win the national title. So another one where I'm kind of rooting for a potential maybe Creighton versus Kansas State matchup. That would be cool for my betting or my luck there to see if I can get some good fortune with that. But Princeton's run and go to the Elite Eight. All right, final matchup and another awesome one. I don't think there's a bad game on the slate. Like, I know we both picked Princeton to lose, but I do think that it's conceivable that you could see them win that game. There's no one game in this bracket where I'm like, oh yeah, this is going to be a cakewalk. I think we got a bunch of great games ahead of us. This one's the Midwest region, number 3 Xavier versus number 2 Texas, 9:45 on CBS. Texas is a 4.5-point favorite, over under 147.5.
Yeah, I have Texas covering that 4.5, and I'm definitely going to take the over. I have Texas winning this game 82-70. This is a Texas team I had coming into the tournament against Xavier in the Sweet 16 winning. I had Texas losing in the national title game to Arizona, but this is a Longhorns team. You know, I said it last week, giving off Team of Destiny vibes, especially with the Final Four being in Houston. I know, obviously, Houston is the main story there, but the Final Four being in Texas, if Texas can get to the Final Four, it's going to be a lot of burnt orange in the crowd, a lot of horns up in the crowd. It's going to be very, very interesting. But that being said, I just think Texas is better. Xavier, this has been an awesome first year with Sean Miller being back, but I just think this is their ceiling. I think the Sweet 16 run is awesome. You know, there's a reason why they're the 3, Texas is the 2. Xavier definitely in the future, though, is going to be very scary. The Big East in general is going to be a lot of fun in the future. But this is just a Texas team. I don't really have much else to say. I just think they're better. No real rhyme or reason to it. I think it's going to be a very exciting game, though.
I'm going to take Texas in this one as well, 78-70. So Texas minus 4.5, and the over just hitting there, 147.5. I know I talked about in the Alabama-San Diego State game, the magic number was around 70. The magic number in this game is 80. Doing some research going into this on this matchup. Texas is 26-3 on the season when they hold their opponent to 80 or less. Xavier comes into this game averaging 81.2 points per game, and they are 22-1 when they score 80 or more. So Can Xavier get over 80? That gives them a very good chance to win. Can Texas hold them below 80? That gives them a very good chance to win. I think Texas is a better team, a deeper team, and I think they're going to be able to make this one a little bit more physical than what Xavier wants. We saw Kennesaw State give them a real scare in the first round. I think they also got a Pitt team that was playing their second game already of the tournament, and a Pitt team that lost steam down the stretch of the season as well. Wasn't really clicking on all cylinders. So two, I guess, kind of favorable games there for them. I do think this is an awesome back and forth battle. I do think we still see some points scored. Xavier, no matter what, is going to find a way to get the ball out of the hoop or get the ball off the rim and go push the pace. And Texas can do that as well. But I just think when it comes down to it and the game kind of slows down at the end, that's going to favor Texas. They're deeper. Xavier has a short bench. I think the depth really comes into fruition here. We could get that Texas versus Miami matchup that we both have, or a Texas-Houston. I think that would be awesome as well. So I'll ride with Texas here, though. I think they're able to hold them under that magic number of 80. Like I said, 26-3 Texas is this year, holding their opponents to under 80 points. And Xavier is 22-1 when they score over 80. So keep an eye out on that number in this one. But I'll ride with the Longhorns here to cover -4.5 and over 147.5. All right, so that's the Sweet 16. We will now briefly just touch on these Elite Eight matchups. We both have Kansas State versus UConn. Or excuse me, we both have Kansas State, or I have Kansas State versus Tennessee. I'll take Kansas State to the Final Four. Joe, you have Kansas State versus Florida Atlantic. Who do you have to go into the Final Four out of that one?
I also have Kansas State going to the Final Four. Just too much talent there for Florida Atlantic.
Okay, then we go to UConn versus Gonzaga. That's both of us. My bracket, I had Kansas going originally, so I don't have this matchup. I think I'm going to ride with Gonzaga. I know you're going to wind up taking UConn, but I said it at the beginning of the bracket. I think this Gonzaga team is kind of embracing that house money kind of mindset and playing, just going out there, playing, having fun. And the looser they play, the better. I think that game would be a really high scoring affair, but give me Gonzaga to squeak through the Final Four. I think that would be a real close one.
Yeah, that'd be an awesome game. I hope that is the matchup we get. I'm obviously going to go UConn.
All right, then we both have Alabama, and we have them both playing Creighton. I think that would be a game where everyone would be hammering Alabama. But Creighton, as I said, they were a Final Four team in my book at the beginning of the year, projected to win the Big East, I believe, in the preseason poll as well. A really good team that's fully healthy now. I think that would be a great one, but I just don't think many teams can compete with Bama and keep up with their pace of play. So give me Alabama there.
Yeah, I hate to say it, Coyle, but I agree 100%. But this is a Creighton team. They were a preseason top 10 team for a reason. Mm-hmm. This is a good Creighton team. It'll be a very exciting game. We could have a potential for a lot of juicy Elite Eight matchups. So I'm very excited for that. But I think Alabama would get through the Final Four.
All right, and then last one, we both have Miami versus Texas for Final Four. That would be pretty insane there. Two of the biggest football brands in college sports. I would probably go with Texas in that one, though. As I said at the beginning, they would have been my team, but I didn't want to pick another 2 seed. I just think they're battle tested throughout the Big 12. They've seen a different style from every single opponent. Like they're able to match up with whoever and whenever, wherever. And I think that they are right now the best team in that bracket. I think Miami would give them a good fight, but I'll take Texas to the Final Four there.
I'll agree, Beef. I had Texas going to the national title game, and I think they're going to be able to do that here. I think they're going to beat Miami. Another high-scoring, awesome game, though, if we do get that matchup.
All right, so I have Bama, Kansas State, and then Texas versus Gonzaga. You have Bama, Kansas State, Texas versus UConn. So wouldn't be disappointed with any of those Final Four games there. But any last second comments, Joe, before we head out?
No, enjoy the games. Have a great weekend, everybody.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. We will be back next week with a brief recap on the Sweet 16 and Elite Eight, and then last show of the season, Final Four National Championship preview. But that'll do it for us here at Beef Up Front, and we'll talk next week.